Well, welcome to my first wine video. I'm very excited to finally be able to put a video online instead of just typing. Before I get into the wine today though, I want to show you, this is the book, Karen McNeil's Wine Bible, that I'm going to go through. It has so much detail and is so interesting to read, and I have never actually gone through it cover to cover. So I'm going to use this as the tool that takes me through the wine world. And we're going to go back to regions again and again, I'm sure, and I'm going to come back to this book every time. For today, the wine that I'm going to try is Shiraz from Australia, and the reason that I chose it is that it's really one of the first grape varieties that I remember trying and really loving. So I wanted to kind of go back to the first wine that I had and try it again and see what I think of it now, and use it as a springboard to other places that we'll explore. The first wine that we're going to try is going to be a Shiraz from Australia. Shiraz is basically Syrah. So if you've heard of Syrah, Shiraz is basically the same grape, and the Australians got it from the French, where they grow a lot of Syrah actually. Now before I actually taste the wine, let me show you the wines. And I know you can't see them from back there, at least you can't see the labels very well. So I'll bring them up close and show you them up close. Okay, hopefully this will help a little bit. Here's the Lindemans Shiraz. It says Bin 50 Shiraz 2009. Now it used to be, probably in the olden days, Bin 50 actually meant something. Maybe it was a way for the winemakers to keep track of the various selected grapes that they had fermenting or storing in oak barrels. But now it really doesn't mean much at all. It just is sort of a general designation that Lindemans has used for their most basic Shiraz is Bin 50. This is the 2009. The back of the label talks about some of the details that you need to know with respect to the wine, what it might taste like, what temperature it might be served at, this sort of thing. Now the other label that we're going to try today is this Paringa Shiraz. Paringa Shiraz is also got kind of a nice stylish label, and it's 2008 down here. It says the name of the wine, the owner of I think the vineyards, David Hickenbotham. And it also talks about its location. South Australia is its origin, but basically, like I said, that could be just about anywhere. Okay, now before we actually open these wines, I want to say just a couple of more words about Australian Shiraz generally. Most people believe, being Australia a New World wine, that Australian Shiraz tends to be what they say is a fruit-forward wine, or a very heavy kind of jammy blackberry, boysenberry kind of wine. It also tends to have a little bit of a sweet character to it. Although these are dry red wines, they kind of have a sweetness to it that you would associate with very, very ripe. The other thing to say about Australian wines is that some of them have now moved to a screw top, as you'll see with the Paringa Shiraz here today. Lindemans does not use a screw top. They have a cork, but it's not, I don't think it's a normal, regular, traditional cork. I think it's a synthetic cork. We'll see when we take it out. But synthetic corks are very popular in Australia as well. So interesting, screw top and synthetic cork are these wines, because you're not going to want to age them very long. You're probably going to drink them fairly soon. It doesn't matter all that much, whether it's a cork, synthetic cork, or a screw top. Both of these wines are wines you want to drink within the first 3 years after buying and not really hold them very long. They're not going to be overly complex wines. They're going to be very heavy fruit wines, and I'm guessing they're going to be ones that you want to drink right now. So, okay, enough talk about the wines. Let's open them and see what they look like and see what they taste like. Okay, I'm back and I have the wine finally opened and finally poured. And I want to tell you, I was right about the Lindemans. This is the cork that was inside the Lindemans. Very short cork, and it's not cork actually, it's a synthetic cork, which makes a lot of sense for Lindemans because this particular wine, I think I even overstated the price. I think it might be about $5.99. You can find it at Trader Joe's or your grocery store if your state sells wine in grocery stores. But this particular cork, being a synthetic cork, is a little bit less expensive than a regular cork would be. And so I think that Lindemans uses this to save a little bit of money on cork, knowing that you're probably going to drink this wine very soon. And of course, the screw top for the Paringa. Now, both of these wines, like I said, are very high production Shiraz wines. So they're going to have kind of a similar characteristic, and they're going to be very fruit forward, very jammy, like I talked about before. Before actually tasting them, I want to show you what the color is. And to do that, I have a white piece of paper, I have light overhead, and I'm going to bring the camera over just to show you the difference in color between the two. Okay, I really hope this shows up, and now I'm holding the camera while I'm doing this. So this is the Lindemans Shiraz. Now notice how purple it is. It's very, very purple. It's just typical of a Syrah or a Shiraz. The color is very typical for this kind of wine. And notice that it's kind of light at the edges. It's almost watery at the edges. So it really kind of fades out as I tip the glass down further. You can really see the color fade. But in the middle it's really dark, inky, kind of purpley. The Paringa is a little bit different. It still has that purple quality to it. It looks very similar in color at the start. But when you go out to the edges, and I don't know if you can pick this up very well, it's not quite as watery as the Lindemans. It's a little bit more dense. There is sort of a light colored edge on the end, but it's a little bit more dense. I think it's going to be a bit more concentrated, and it might be even a bit more fruit filled than the Lindemans. Okay, now that we've seen the wines, let's go ahead and taste them. I'm going to start with the Lindemans just because it's my first wine I've ever had that I remember was Lindemans Bin 50 Shiraz from southeastern Australia. You can actually smell the alcohol, I think, on this. And remember that this one's 13.5% while the Paringa is 15%, but even at this lower alcohol level, I still think you can really detect it when you're smelling it. I like to swirl it. You know, people talk about how to drink wine. Drink wine however you're comfortable drinking wine. I'm sure I'll make a video about this later, but this is just what I do. I've gotten used to it, and I find that swirling it a little bit in the glass kind of helps to bring out some of the scents on the nose. Yeah, that is just how I remember it. This is a very strong wine. It's very strong in character, strong in taste. It's got a ton of fruit. It definitely has a lot of alcohol. It's got that blackberry character too, kind of boysenberry character that I associate with Syrah, and kind of that sweet edge, but not sweet as in sugary sweet, but sweet as in very, very ripe fruit. Super ripe fruit. Now, I should tell you that before I opened these bottles, while we were taking the break and I moved the camera over here, I actually chilled down both of these wines for about 30 minutes in the refrigerator. I think most red wines, especially dry red wines, can benefit from a little bit of cooling. You don't want them at room temperature, you want them just under room temperature, I think. And so a little bit of time in the refrigerator before you open them will make the fruit come out and the nose come out. You'll smell it, you'll taste it just a little bit better than if it were at room temperature. If a wine is too warm, sometimes those characteristics don't really come through. Now let me try the Paringa. I expect this isn't going to be much different, except the alcohol is quite a bit higher. Wow, the smell is completely different, I have to tell you. This one has much more of a sweet, ripe smell. This one, the smell is a little bit more reserved. It's kind of earthy, and by earthy, sometimes you use the term earthy to describe like almost a dirty characteristic to the wine, which is not a bad thing, but I kind of like it. It's a little bit funky that way, but I think funky in a good way. This is a very good wine. It also has a nice spice characteristic to it, and I think some like herbs. Some people might describe something like thyme or rosemary or some sort of like savory herbs in the wine that you don't really have in the Lindemans Shiraz. Lindemans Shiraz is much more fruit driven. This is more balanced, I think, between some of the spice and herb characters and some of the fruit. Yeah, this is a nice wine. It also has that kind of a jammy characteristic to it that when you're swallowing the wine, it sort of coats the back of your tongue, and that's where you get some of the sweetness. It's almost like, I almost want to say it's almost like some sort of boysenberry or blackberry syrup. I think both of these wines are quite syrupy, but I think this one has more of a mouth coating character, where this one has more of the fruit up front in the forward part. When you first take it, it just hits your mouth like a ton of fruit, whereas this one starts out slow but then gains momentum as you taste it, and so at the end of your palate, when you're actually swallowing the wine, is where you really taste the most out of this wine, and you have that spice and that herbal characteristic that really makes it quite interesting. And I'd say between these two wines, with this one at $5.99 and this one at $8.99, these are two excellent value wines, and I'm very glad that I opened them to taste them side by side. Next week I'm hoping to do a different region. Haven't decided exactly which one I'm going to do. If anybody has any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear it. And we're going to move around the world and move through Karen McNeil's book, The Wine Bible. So until next time, see you soon.